Evening, Chair. Evening, members.
Evening, Matthew.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hi, Matthew.
Hi there.
Okay, as it is now 6 o'clock, I think we should begin. So to start off, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Good evening.
I'm Councillor Jonathan Fern, Chair of the Foreman, and I'd like to welcome everyone to the meeting. This meeting has been held virtually in accordance with the Council's rules for virtual meetings. Councillors are reminded that although the meeting is being held remotely, they're regarded as being present in a meeting of the Council and they should observe the normal rules of behaviour at all times. First of all, can I please ask that everyone present in this virtual meeting that your microphones remain muted and your cameras turned off while you're not addressing the meeting, as this will reduce background noise and avoid any unintentional disturbances. Can members please ensure their mobile phones are now switched off or on silent? Please can I also advise that the open parts of the meeting are being recorded and live streamed from the Council's YouTube channel and the website, and these will be available following the meeting. Members and officers, where appropriate for each item, please use the chat function or raise a hand to indicate that you wish to speak, and I will then invite you to speak at the appropriate time. Each member will be invited to speak in turn, therefore I would encourage all members to keep your contributions as clear and concise as possible, please. If members wish to leave the meeting at any point, could they please make themselves known to me and I will announce in the meeting that you are to leave the meeting. Now, could I please ask the Democratic Services Officer to undertake a roll call of members of the committee to confirm who is present this evening?
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, members. I'll do a roll call, starting with the Winchester City Council members. Councillor, if you could just confirm you can hear me okay, that'd be brilliant. Councillor Fern obviously is present. Councillor Bento.
Evening, Matthew. Yes, present and hearing you.
Thank you. Councillor Evans.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you. We've had apologies from Councillor McLean. Councillor Miller.
Here and present. I can hear you. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, Councillor Pearson.
Here, present. I can hear you loud and clear.
Thank you. Moving on to Hampshire County Council, Councillor Lumby. Councillor Lumby, I can see you. Can you hear us okay?
Yes, I had terrible problems logging on. I think an early endorsement for meeting in person because I couldn't get.
Okay, good.
Maybe that was the plan. In which case, an early endorsement for continuing as we are.
Thank you. And Councillor Woodward.
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. Fareham Borough Council, Councillor Bull. Councillor Bull. I've seen Councillor Bull join, Chair. So
okay.
I'll come back to Councillor Bull. Councillor Pretty of Eastleigh Borough Council.
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. Whiteley Town Council, Councillor Evans.
Yes, I'm here.
Botley Parish Council, Councillor Mercer.
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. And Curdridge Parish Council, Councillor Bodger.
Yes, I'm present.
Thank you. I'll just come back to Councillor Bull, Chair. Councillor Ball, can you hear us okay? Okay, we'll try and locate Councillor Ball. It looks like she's in the meeting, but we'll make some calls. Chair, if it's okay, shall I just carry on with the officers and guests that we've got with us this evening?
If you could, Matthew, that'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you. So joining us this evening from Tetra Tech, we have Jeff Davis. Jeff, can you hear us okay?
Yes, I can. Good evening.
Thank you. And we're being joined by two members of the public, Spencer Allen. Spencer, can you hear us okay?
I can, thank you. I think it might come up as saying it's my wife's name on here because I'm on her laptop. So apologies for that. I hadn't really counted for that, but yes, I am here.
No problem at all. Thank you for that. And from Whiteley Town Council, Councillor Hazel Croft-Phillips. I haven't seen Hazel join yet, but again, I'll make some inquiries. Moving on to the Hampshire County Council, we've been joined by Ray Olborough. Can you hear us okay, Ray?
Yes, I can. Thank you. And I'm clearly present.
Thank you. And Duncan Stewart, Chair, who I can see on the screen at the moment. And finally, Chair, Winchester City Council councillors, we've been joined by Julie Pennock, Service Lead for Built Environment, Hilary Oliver, the North Whiteley Implementation Officer, and Karen Vincent, the City Council Governance Manager. That completes the roll call, Chair. Thank you very much.
Lovely. Thank you, Matthew.
Hello, good evening. Sorry to interrupt. It's Councillor Ball. I do apologise. I had microphone issues. I'm with you. Thank you.
That's marvellous. Thank you very much, Councillor Ball.
Okay. Right. Okay. So we've had the apologies. So we go on to item number 2, public participation. As previously mentioned, we've got 2 members of the public registered to speak this evening. And first off, we have my fellow neighbour, Spencer Allen. So Spencer, good evening, and your question, please.
Good evening. I've got a few points to make. I've got about 4. Is that okay?
Of course. Please proceed.
Yeah. I don't know if you can see them on the screen. Oh, here we go. Look. Here we go. There we go. There we go. So, yeah, I'm Spencer Allen. I live in Maple Rise, which is about a road away from Bluebell Way. And my points are, the first one is the fact that the road down Bluebell Way is fairly long and reasonably straight, and it's fed by a hill. So guess what? We've got lots of speeding going on down there, and I'm not sure if that's been accounted for. It's very noisy. The surface is noisy. You get lots of cars there with loud exhaust, etc. Makes your life a bit of a misery after a while. We tried to put up with it, but I'm not overly happy about that. So it's the speeding. It's the lack of traffic calming. I note that the road that's going to feed the Tesco roundabout, that has provision for traffic calming on it, because there's the sign there that's blanked out and you can see where they're going to put the calming, and it has very clear limits there. The 30 I can see on this particular road. The limits are posted as, it's a private road still, it's not adopted down the bottom of Bluebell. It's posted with 20s in a very long-winded sign with in a very small font, which people A, don't take notice of, B, I think people have come and kicked the signs over. So that's a problem. And all the traffic has caused immense damage to the manhole covers on the hill of Bluebell. I have done something about that. I've been to Hampshire Highways. I reported 2. I could hear them in my house so loud, it's ridiculous. They've come and fixed 1. I've re-reported on the second one. This was after 2.5 months. This must cause my neighbours some nuisance as well, I guess, because we can certainly hear it in our house. It's dangerous. A few weeks ago, about a month ago, one of those covers popped up because the heavy lorries going over it makes them flip because they are so loose in the way that they are fitted into the road that could cause a serious accident. So I'm getting kind of, I suppose, a bit jaded with chasing this because, you know, they fixed one, they haven't fixed the other one. That is a safety issue. And I guess my last point, apart from that one, is the fact that I'm a keen cyclist, and those cycle paths, I do not understand the signage on them. Any path I've ever been on, when you're on the path, the sign tells you you're on a bike path. It's a shared pedestrian bike path. The ones down here, it tells you when you get on the path, but when you're on the path, you can't see the signs because they're not actually facing you, which is the most bizarre situation I've never seen before. So again, I don't really understand that. There's no markings. When you're on a bike, you know, often pedestrians might have a go at you and say, you shouldn't be on here. If you can point to a sign, you go like, well, yes, I can be on here because it's a shared path. So they are my 4 or 5 points that I came here tonight to mention to you. So thank you very much for that.
Okay, lovely. Thank you, Spencer. Could I please ask the officers from Hampshire County Council to comment on that, please?
Certainly, Chairman, it's Ray Aldborough here. First of all, on the speeding issue, if I may, a speed check has been carried out approximately halfway down the hill that you referred to. In both directions, the 85th percentile speed is about 31 miles per hour, which, as the road is subject to a 30-mile-per-hour speed limit, is not significantly greater than the speed limit, as you will appreciate. So I don't necessarily see that there is a speeding problem there. Your second point referred to noise, and you also referred to loud exhausts. That's something that neither the highway nor the planning authority can do anything about. So the only thing that I can recommend is that the City Council's environmental health officer might go out there with a noise meter and to actually find out the actual noise, the general background noise that is being experienced by yourselves. For individual cars or motorbikes, I don't think anything can be done about. Manhole covers, I appreciate this is long-standing. One has been fixed, as you rightly say. In fact, I think there have been 3 in all, not to complicate matters, but one's been repaired by the consortium, one's been repaired by Southern Water. The outstanding one is the responsibility of Hampshire County Council. An order has been made. It's made a priority. We are awaiting a response from our contractor to give us a date to carry out the works. So whilst unfortunately that's taking longer than we would like, it is nevertheless in hand. So Mr. Allen, what I can do, if you can let Mr. Watson know your contact details so that he can pass them on to me, I will email you when I know any further update on that.
Okay.
The final point I think you mentioned was signing for cyclists. There will be a requirement for signing. Clearly, we have to sign them at the beginning, which is the signs that you mentioned exist. We also have to sign them when footpaths adjoin the route. So I think those are the signs that you've mentioned. What's missing might be repeater signs along the route. Now, there is a requirement for them to be provided under the traffic signs regulations and general directions, and I can check that and make sure that there is a requirement on the drawings for the agreements with the developers. So if you could leave that one with me again, I will come back to you with an update when I've had a chance to look at that.
Okay, thank you. Just to add a bit more weight to that, I mean, I live opposite Spencer, and I'm sat in my study at the moment, and it was at the front of my house, and I've just heard 3 cars go by and clatter on that manhole lid. It's quite noisy, and the traffic does steam up and down that road. It's even now I can hear it. So I think they are going over 30. That much is obvious. But obviously, I would welcome any speed testing or any future traffic measures that could be put in place. I think it does need it. That long straight is a problem. But anyway,
Chairman, sorry, can I just come back? There is another item about that I did forget to mention. Consideration is being given to the provision of an additional traffic calming feature towards the bottom of, or just beyond the bottom of the hill. That's a current discussion going on between colleagues of mine and the consortium.
Lovely. Okay, thank you. Councillor Mike Evans.
Thank you, Chair. Just to elevate Spencer's complaint, I must tell you that lots of residents have contacted the town council and said they can hear that traffic, particularly certain motorbikes as well, that is extremely noisy in the evenings. I don't know if that is in the same instance as Spencer, but especially in the evenings, people said they can hear them roaring up and down. And
Yeah.
Chair, you just said that as well. And
I have, yeah. I mean, sorry to cut you off there. I mean, I'm sat in my study now, and I can hear cars going up and down, and my windows are triple glazed, so they're definitely going over 30. I know that much.
Yeah, and we have discussed this with Councillor Lumby at when he's attended the town council meetings.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Spencer, sorry, would you like to comment or raise another point?
Yeah, I'd just like to say that traffic calming would be fantastic. I saw that speed measurement device in, and that's midway up the hill. That ain't going to catch people going faster than 30, that's for sure, because you're either going up the hill or just starting to go down it. I believe that you put it on that straight at the bottom, you get people going much more than that. And on that bit of land, it does say 20. For me, traffic calming would be fantastic. Even one speed bump would be wonderful. Better signage would be better. You know, like, as I say, up by Tesco, it's clear. There's a big 30 sign up there. That road isn't even properly open yet. It must be in the same way. This is still an unadopted road down the bottom there. It must be the same there. It's a nice big sign saying 30. But yes, people, I understand a bit about the exhaust pipes. That's just an example. I know you can't do anything about that. That's just down to people not following the law, which is, you know, very annoying. But for me, the speeding is mainly in the daytime. Some of the lorries got there at a heck of a rate. You know, I know they do. I've seen it, and especially at night times when people think no one's around. You know, it's and also I think the point needs to be made that when people are walking their children to school or walking their dogs, there's people going down there at silly speeds sometimes. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. They should all be following the speed limit. It shouldn't be just some of them. It should be all of them. And one day there will be an accident. Luckily, we've had a mild winter. There's no snow. Imagine what happened when it gets to be icy. So they're my key concerns about the whole speeding thing. So enough for me to come tonight and talk about it. And I think I do speak for a lot of my neighbours, obviously, but it's whether they want to, you know, come and talk about it or not. But I've talked to Vivian about it as well. So I had a meeting with her the other day, but unfortunately she couldn't make it tonight. So she's got my points too. But they all say, well, your responses sound, you know, pretty positive, and something's been looked at and done. The manhole cover, to get that done ASAP would be brilliant, because my wife has to work all day and it drives around the twist, frankly. And even if they came back quickly and did what they did before, put that plastic barrier around it with a sign, that cured it for ages until they fixed it. But I don't see why you can't just come and do that now. They did that a few weeks ago. That was perfect. I don't see, it's all there. It's all on the side, just dumped. So someone could easily come along and just put that around there again. I did see a guy on Saturday come and take pictures, so I knew something was going to happen because we're quite observant. But yeah, even some barriers would be a temporary fix to the horrendous noise that we are currently suffering.
Lovely, thank you, Spencer. Ray, have you got anything to add to that at all?
Yeah, yes, Chairman, if I may. About the location of the speed survey, I think that was done by the developers or the consortium members. Mr. Davis is on the line. I think it's possible that he might agree to doing another one in a different location, as you have suggested. I think that's one point I'd like to make. The other point is, as this is such a critical issue for the local residents, including you, Chairman, of course, I would say that I have had an offer from the consortium to fix this manhole. Now, I suspect because they have ground workers on site, they will be able to do it quicker than the county council's contractor. So again, with Mr. Davis's agreement, I will ask the consortium to carry out the repair as quickly as possible.
Lovely, thank you. Much appreciated. Councillor Lumby.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, the battery seems to have gone on my mouse, so it's quite hard to turn things on and off. Apologies. So just picking up some of those points which were really good. As Mr. Alborough said, it's 3 manholes, and we've had a lot of work, and he's just drive what's going on there. One point that I was told about speeding was that actually the amount of signage is restricted, because if we put too much signage up, or the wrong sort of signage, apparently that invalidates the ability of the police to enforce. Not that I've actually seen the police enforcing down there, but that's an important consideration. One thing I wanted to mention, which is that there has been an awful lot of knocking over of signs going on, and I don't really know why that's happening. For example, the signs that were around the manholes that were broken seem to be knocked away pretty regularly. I suspect that might be vehicles, but that isn't just simply them being removed when works are done. A lot of the signage on the pathways seems to be being knocked over or chucked over the fence on a regular basis. And I would be really interested to hear if anyone knows who is doing that and why, because that doesn't help at all. So if anyone has any views or can shed any light on that, I think that'd be useful. And if there are things that can be done to discourage that, all to the better. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Lambert. I know, speaking from personal experience, because I do use the road myself, the barriers that were put up do restrict the width of the road, which is the standard minimum road width, and it does create a bit of a pinch point for traffic, and to the point where I've seen cars go up on the curb to get past them. So I'm not surprised they've been knocked down, but until that manhole's repaired, I don't think that's going to change much. But we'll see how that one goes. Councillor Mercer, sorry for the delay. Your question, please.
Thank you. I would just add a word of caution about putting in speed bumps, because they actually, if you get anything large, they create much more noise than you were. You need a long speed pad or something like that in order for it to become effective. I would also add we have a similar problem at the development near us in Borley Green, where there is a long straight road downhill and people are speeding down that, and we're getting virtually the same. We're not having the manhole complaints because it's not so many of them, but we're getting virtually the same problems there as you're seeing here. So it is an enforcement issue that does need attention. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you, Councillor Mercer. Okay. Secondly, we have Councillor Hazel Croft-Phillips on behalf of Whiteley Town Council. And if she is here, would you like to ask your question, please?
I would like to ask my question. I don't know why I'm not. Chairman, are you able to see me and hear me?
We were able to see you. You blotted out sound-wise for a little bit there. So if you want to go sound only and not camera, I don't have a problem with that. If you just like to proceed with the question, please go ahead.
Are you able to hear me now?
We are indeed. Well, at least I am.
Lovely.
I hope the members are.
Well, thank you very much for the opportunity to ask. Just two quick questions. I'd like to thank everyone for the detailed written reports which followed the meetings in July and November. And my first question is, please could we have a spoken update on the progress of installation of facilities for wildlife, such as number of bird boxes achieved and bat boxes and use, and progress on the construction of hedgehog corridors under garden walls, etc. So that's the first question. Please, could we just have a spoken update? I know that there is a report, but it would be very nice just to hear what has been achieved so far. And secondly, Winchester City Council declared a climate emergency 2 years ago, and congratulations to Winchester. And since the last North Whiteley Forum, we've had the COP conference. How have developers reacted to these and the government target of zero carbon emissions by 2030, although I think they have shifted that a bit, and it seems to shift every day? Have any developers changed their plans regarding solar panels, electric charging points, etc., to meet the targets that have been set for our country? Thank you very much, Chairman.
Thank you. That's quite an involved question. I think the answer for that is not going to be broadcast tonight, but I would like to think that we will get, or someone at Winchester will get back to you. In particular, probably Mrs. Pinnock. Julie, are you there at all?
Yes, I am. Good evening, Chair. Yeah, I've noted those down. I think you're right. I think in terms of the City Council's climate emergency, yeah, obviously, as you say, pleased that that's happened. I think what we need to bear in mind is this planning permission has already been granted. So we as a local planning authority can't ask for more than the planning permission requires. We are in the process at the moment of updating and reviewing our local plan, and we will certainly be having policies in there that pick up on and seek to deal with, you know, the climate emergency and how we can move that forward. And it's a very hot topic for us at the moment. So, you know, welcome that. I suppose the developer, you know, maybe that's something for the consortium to pick up in terms of, you know, whether they want to do anything extra and what their business approach is to that. So if that's enough for now, Chair, hopefully we might hear from the consortium later.
Thank you, Julie. Yes, it's quite a question. I think it's obviously one that needs looking into, but obviously not one we're going to get an answer for tonight. But definitely, I think it's definitely something to look into. I would very much welcome an enhanced application from developers for future developments, and hopefully the consortium will provide an update on that in due course. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Croft, we can't hear you. You're muted.
Thank you. And my first question regarding the hedgehogs and bird boxes and bat boxes. I'm not sure if that's Julie or Hilary, but it would be very nice to know actual numbers up to date as to what has been put in and the residents of those boxes, if possible.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Croft. I'm sure someone will get back to us with some figures in due course. Councillor Frank Pearson, you have a question.
Thank you, Jonathan. I think I've got sound now. Yeah, coming back to the question about biodiversity, I think this is a fair one, but as Mrs. Pinnock quite rightly said, planning permission for the whole development was given before the Environment Act came in, which sets down certain requirements about biodiversity. One of those requirements is, of course, a biodiversity register, so that Natural England can ensure that there's a minimum of 10% increase in the biodiversity within a development area. Now, that only came in November of last year. I don't think it applies to existing planning permissions. The same applies to the solar targets, and I presume Councillor Croft means carbon saving as a result of solar panels. No targets actually have been set yet. It was a COP26 requirement, but as they haven't been set yet, once again, the consortium has missed it. I mean, in fairness to them, planning permission was given 2 or 3 years back, and while the Environment Bill was there was no way they could say, or we could say, that this would going to come in. I mean, the air quality section, for example, of the Environment Act was decimated from the original bill. What is there now? Well, my personal opinion is actually nonsense. But that is the difficulty the developers have. Now, I agree entirely with what Councillor Hazelcroft is saying about the requirement, but they've gone past the winning post before the requirement came in. So I'm giving them not an excuse. I'm giving them a reason, and that's the reality.
Okay, lovely. Thank you, Councillor Pearson.
You're welcome.
Okay, Councillor Lumby.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Sorry, the camera isn't coming on. No, it did there. Just a sort of general point. We obviously slightly struggle with public participation when we insist on doing this online. But with questions like Councillor Crofthill, it's an excellent question. Would it be sensible to have a facility for people to be able to put questions in advance of the meeting, so that officers can actually look at the questions in advance and come back with more detailed answers? Because I think we'd all like to hear the answers. And the problem with responses that come back after the meeting, as you know, is they tend to disappear and never really be seen again. So I wonder whether that's something that we could perhaps think about, an ability to ask questions earlier and submit them in advance of the meeting. Would that be useful or possible?
Indeed. I mean, I know, speaking for myself, I do publicise out on some of the local forums that we have this meeting coming up and the questions need to be submitted by a certain date. And obviously, we've had a couple of questions this evening. More would be nice. Obviously, yeah. So it would be good, definitely.
Yeah, if I could just add there, I mean, we do exactly what Councillor Lumbey is suggesting, and Mr. Allen's question earlier on, for example, we were able to make sure there was some officers from the county council around to answer the question. Unfortunately, with Councillor Hazel Croft-Phillips, she was only able to get in touch with us this morning to ask if she could ask a question. So that meant we didn't have that sort of time available. But yes, we do ask for a sort of three day sort of advance notice, if you like.
Cool. Yeah, I think the more we can do of that nature and publicising the meeting, and Jay, you mentioned some of the stuff that you do, that's great. But the more, the better, I think.
Indeed, definitely, totally agreed.
Cool. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you, Councillor Lumbey. Okay. Moving on to meeting agenda number 3, the minutes of the previous meeting held on the 16th of November 2021. Can the previous minutes of the meeting be signed as a correct record, please?
Agreed.
Okay.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm happy.
Agreed.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you, members. Okay. Very quickly, I've got 2 raised hands, starting with Councillor Woodward.
Thank you very much, Chairman. It's a matter possibly of accuracy on the minutes, because I have raised at each meeting of these virtual meetings, which, as we found yet again this evening, are particularly cumbersome, unhelpful for all participants. When I raised it at the last meeting, which is not reflected in the minutes, and said I thought it was high time these meetings, as the rest of the world, everywhere except Winchester City Council, seems to have returned to normal in-person meetings, you actually supported what I said, Chairman, at that meeting, and said you, because I actually went and had a little look back at the video, and we've had a bit of a debate between ourselves, obviously, when the agenda was published, and the general surprise that yet again we're in this ridiculous situation. And I think in a couple of weeks' time, all restrictions would have been lifted. Why on earth are these fora continuing to meet in this unsatisfactory way, where people just cannot properly participate?
Thank you, Councillor Woodward. I would mention that the Winchester Council has agreed at the moment that the forum meetings be conducted online. However, at the moment, it was mentioned that 2 meetings for the rest of the year would be online, with 1 in person. The date for that has not yet been confirmed. I am, however, happy to take forward to Cabinet the request that these meetings be in person. I have no issue with that. I do think the timing is somewhat questionable, what with COVID, etc., but I will take guidance from Cabinet and put it forward. Councillor Therese Evans.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, you're not speaking on my behalf. I am aware that Councillor Woodward feels that he wants to meet in person, and Councillor Lumbey is also one of his topics. But I'm quite satisfied with these meetings, and I think they, with the sustainability of everybody driving all the way down to Whiteley, I just don't think that's on. So, and I agree with you over the COVID situation. So, if you're putting forward a request, you're not doing it on my behalf, and I don't know how other councillors feel. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Evans. I did discuss this with Councillor Cutler, the deputy leader, the other day, and again, because of the fact it is money to be spent, it does need approval, and I am happy to raise it on behalf of the members here and see what decision we get. So, so yes, I'm happy to go ahead with that. Councillor Mercer.
Good evening again. I would like to thoroughly support Councillor Woodward. We should have face-to-face meetings. It's perfectly safe now. The conditions are being removed, and I'd go as far as to request that you take a vote or a poll of how many people present at the moment would favour such a meeting in person. I would like to make, if you prefer, a firm proposal that we recommend meetings in person. As you said, you yourself agree with it because you clearly told Councillor Woodward. I have spoken with several of colleagues, and I believe some of them may well have written to you expressing their views.
Thank you, Councillor Mercer. I think given the complexity of that with an online vote within a virtual meeting tonight, I would rather everyone who wishes an online meeting or against, please emails me at my Winchester City Council email address, and I will quite happily forward that, or at least they can get hold of Democratic Services if you don't trust me to forward a realistic
I don't think
result.
there's a question of trust here at all. No.
Well, I have to say it because I'm sure someone will make the comment. So if anyone wants to email Democratic Services with their chosen preference, then obviously that will get moved forward. I am more than happy for that to happen.
Councillor, I really have got to say something about this. We're not talking about COVID. We're talking about the present difficulty of access to Whiteley. With the motorway junction frequently closed off and the roadworks around there, getting into Whiteley is incredibly difficult. It's not that much better coming down Kerbridge Lane. So take that into account if you're going to talk to that. Some of us come quite a distance, or would come quite a distance down North Whiteley. I'm up in Swanmore, and access from Swanmore is difficult. I was at a function in the Solent Hotel a couple of weeks back, and that function finished, I think it was 10:30, by which time all the roads to going south were closed off. Now, that's the reality. And unless you're prepared to book in hotel suites for us to stay there, if we want to attend those meetings, which is a ridiculous statement, I do agree, Councillor Mercer. But if you're living virtually in Whiteley, as in fairness, Councillor Woodward does, take into consideration not just the members who've got to travel a distance, but the officers as well.
Thank you, Councillor Pearson. Councillor, sorry, I just want to say my bit and then I will let you speak.
Yeah, sorry, yes.
Having spoken to Councillor Cutler about this, I mean, he reiterated that with the booking costs and officers' time and everything involved with it, to host a meeting at the Whiteley Solent Hotel with a suitable meeting room, we were looking at a cost in the region of £1,500 to £2,000. Now, as a council, we obviously have to justify expenditure of public purse. So I am willing to obviously raise that with my fellow members. And obviously, like I said, if you want to email in Democratic Services with your wishes, I'm sure the officers will let me know the numbers and we can take it forward, really.
I would like to respond. If you go in through the route from Botley to Kerbridge, take that path, there is very little difficulty in getting through to Whiteley. There's no challenge at all. The motorway has been under extreme stress because of the work they're doing on it. going down the motorway is not a good idea to do this. You may have also noticed that the number of participants from the residents has dramatically slumped. And after all, this forum is mainly not for us, but for the residents to move forward. And if we are not providing reasonable facilities for them to come and listen and to hear us speak and to own up what we're saying, I think that's frankly deplorable when we have everybody else and every other council of any is meeting in person anyway. I don't see why we can't do. You clearly support it because you have told Councillor Woodward that you support it. So I think we need to really bottom this out.
The only thing I'm going to contradict you on there, Councillor Mers, is oddly enough, Councillor Thompson of Winchester City Council, there are other forums that are actually better attended because they are online rather than in person because of the ease of accessing them. So it's not always the case that an actual in-person meeting is going to be properly attended. And indeed, I've attended parish council meetings where no members of the public attend, but the moment they go online, you suddenly get people attend. So not always the case. However, I do take your views into consideration along with all the other members. Okay, so I will move on to the next person.
Please don't move on. There are a lot of hands up.
Indeed, we are. So I'm going to start with Councillor Lumby, who I believe raised his hand first. Councillor Lumby.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just quickly, because as you say, we've gone through this debate before. I do think that it's important, and Councillor Mercer, I think, was spot on. This is about the residents of Whiteley and how we're doing development here. And being here and meeting with the people, giving the residents their side must be the priority. And I know there's this tendency to always say, oh, it's cost, cost, cost. In the same way as Winchester Council said, oh, you know, NDA, you can't speak. But that is wrong. That is anti-democratic. We need to be engaging with people and actually giving this forum its purpose, its life, actually giving it the chance to do what it's trying to do. Otherwise, we may as well give up, because if it's just a bunch of people from outside the area having a little chat online without the residents being involved, then it's achieving nothing. So we really need to bring new life into it, meet in person, not hide behind excuses about costs, but actually believe in democracy and engagement and talking to the residents and hearing their issues, which we heard some tonight, but we need to hear a whole lot more. So I would strongly support, as Councillor Evans predicted, that we meet in person, and we do that as soon as possible, and we don't ever return to online. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Lumby. And as I've previously said, if everyone would like to email Democratic Services or myself, obviously we'll move that forward. But Councillor Mike Evans, sorry to keep you waiting. How can we help?
Thank you, Chair. I fully endorse what Councillor Woodward has said, and Councillor Lumley and Councillor Mercer. Residents are not happy. I can tell you, I'm getting feedback all the time. I'm meeting residents from North Whiteley turned up to the parish town council meeting the other day. They feel this is very cumbersome. They would like to see faces. They would like to be at a physical meeting, and I totally support it. I just feel they feel that some of the existing residents in Whiteley feel let down. So I think the sooner we can get back to physical meetings, Chair, the better for all.
Lovely. Thank you, Councillor Evans. Councillor Bodger.
All I want to say was that I can see no point whatever in doing this by email. There are only 12 voting members present. We could do a roll call immediately and decide which way to move.
Unfortunately, because of the complexity, I'd rather everyone just email in.
Yeah, I'm sure you'd rather, because...
Councillor Bodger, please. We have an agenda to set this evening, and this was not mentioned on the agenda. So that's how I want this to move on, so we're not sat here all evening. I would very much like that to be the method that goes forward. Everyone can email Democratic Services if they want. That would be the most impartial way to go forward. and then I will quite happily take it through the cabinet.
If I may, Councillor Fern.
If we can make this the last comment on this matter, because it's not been minuted tonight as an agenda item, and it seems to be dragging on a bit. I think everyone's made their sentiments clear, and I think we do need to move on. But please proceed.
I think it is quite normal within our sphere of operation to have matters arising from the minutes, and it's already been raised, and you haven't answered the fact what you will do about the accuracy of the minutes, as Councillor Sean Woodward said. So we do need the opportunity in these meetings to comment on minutes. Thank you.
Duly noted. Right, moving swiftly on. Right, item number 6, the report on the community development activities and any issues arising within the major development area, i.e. the MDA. At our last meeting, you remember that officers brought a draft terms of reference for the community governance review to us, which we commented on. This evening, we have Karen Vincent, the City Council's governance officer, or manager, sorry, with us to provide an update on activities since our last meeting. So, Karen, over to you, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good evening, members and visitors. It's just a brief verbal update. We discussed at your meeting in November that we accept there is now a requirement for community governance review to be carried out. The number of occupations is moving on at a pace, and you have quite an emerging community there that is ready for some support. There is a paper, as agreed, going to Licensing and Regulatory Committee, which is actually next week. So everything behind the scenes has been set up so that once we go through that process with L&R and get approval from them, we'll be in a position on Monday, the 28th of February, to begin mailing out to residents details about a call to residents who want to join the advisory panel that some of your members will be on, no doubt, and explaining to them what a community governance review is and how it's going to be carried out. In between now and then, I'll be speaking to the clerks at the relevant parish and town councils and providing them with posters to publicly display, and hopefully they'll be able to put them on their websites for us as well. We'll have a section on the City Council website that will explain what a community governance review is, and hopefully I'm speaking to our IT colleagues about people being able to submit comments to us, their comments and their feelings about any proposals that they have for the emerging community, and we'll be able to take them straight from the website, as well as emails, telephone calls, etc. We are going to be looking at some public meetings down at the North Whiteley and relevant locations there. So I'll be looking for some guidance from some of you about, local places that are a good location to capture a vast variety of the residents that are already there. And then we have a piece in about Winchester as well that advises that the community governance review is going to take place. And again, a call for interested residents to contact us for either the advisory board or to actually just to get their voices heard.
Lovely, thank you, Karen. We are going to open up for approximately 20 odd minutes for questions and comments. So I shall start with Councillor Hugh Lumby.
Thank you, Chair. And thanks, Karen, for the update. A question, because I'm confused. At the last meeting, we set up a body to be looking into this and to meet and discuss. I was allowed to join in a non-voting capacity, which was very exciting, and thank you for that. Has that body met, and have I been deliberately excluded? Is there a party going on to which I'm not invited, other than in Downing Street, another party, or is it in fact nothing's happened, and so why not?
Okay, so nothing has happened. When we acknowledged the need in November that now was the right time, Lisa Kirkman was on the call with us, wasn't she, the monitoring officer? She explained the process that we have to go through. Whilst we don't expect any problems at the L&R committee, we do need to be respectful that the paper does need to go there and be approved first before we can start any of those activities. So once that approval is given, I'm looking at some dates in March to start those meetings. We're talking about bi-monthly meetings. And if we start in March, I would anticipate that we should have had some response to some of the outreach work we're going to do. So we'll have something physically to discuss and hopefully some residents to meet with us as well.
I think the worry is that actually by the sort of any sort of delay at all is, and I know you're not saying delay, isn't it? You're saying now getting on with it. But any sort of delay in getting going is causing problems. For example, in terms of working out who ends up responsible for which bit of infrastructure. There's a very real point, which is to do with the bus stops. A lot of the bus stops are in Curdridge Parish, but Curdridge Parish don't want to be taking them on, quite rightly, I think. Whiteley Town Council doesn't want to take on a bunch of bus stops outside its control. The Winchester City Council said they're not taking the bus stops on. I don't know why. Oh, I do know why, because they only take bus stops on in the city, probably forgetting that there is quite a lot of district outside the city. And so Hampshire has picked it up, but they can't put the bus stops in and off operation until the land is adopted, the roads are adopted, which of course takes place in the development. So we have a total real problem with the bus provision, which actually goes back, ironically, to the fact that we haven't sorted out the governance. So it is really important. So I guess what I'm saying in a very short way, long way to say shortly, is please can we get on with this urgently now?
We can, Councillor Lumby, and I hear exactly what you're saying. However, there's a very, very strict legislative timetable. So there are several phases that we need to move through before we are in a position to make a decision, or we are in a position to take submissions and then offer those back to you to make a decision on what the governance looks like. And that does require us to consult at least on two separate tranches of the CGR with the public that are living in those areas. So I do understand, and I think that's why one of the reasons we're taking this forward at the number of occupations we have, rather than waiting for additional occupations, because we have accepted that there are difficulties there. However, the process, once we start it on the 22nd after LNR, has a very, very strict set of rules that we need to follow in the CGR rules to get to the point where you can have a decision about what sits where with who.
I mean, this went through Cabinet setting up this body sometime back in the summer, I seem to recall, although time does seem to get a bit confusing during pandemics.
Not the advisory group for this. I think there was something went through Cabinet in terms of the terms of reference for other meetings, other fora, which has to be reviewed annually.
This one.
But certainly if I tell you, as soon as we get the stamp on the paper from licensing and regulatory, we will be off and running.
Okay. Lovely. Karen, can I just ask, these legislative steps that we have to take for this process, is there a rough timescale that we can just advise members on, just so everyone's got a rough idea of when this is likely to sort of kick off, really?
Absolutely. I mean, the end steps are literally us looking at what offers have come forward on the table, what the residents want, and then we are required by law to make what we call a reorganisation order. And at that point, that's where we would be looking at if we need to draw new parish boundary lines, etc. So that reorganisation order takes all of those submissions into account, and the decision that's come to is then put into a detailed order, and we would be looking at that being done in November of this year.
Okay, so after November, what steps after that, or is that decision time effectively?
That's decision time, and what tends to happen is that order would come into force. We're going to draw that up, and we want to draw that up in November and submit that order. That would come into force in the April of 23, with elections in the May 24, bearing in mind if we need to amend councillor numbers, or we're creating a new parish, or we're adding numbers to an existing parish, that would take place in the May elections in 2024.
Lovely, thank you, Karen. Moving on to the next question. Spencer Allen, member of the public, you have a question, please.
Well, questions or points really, but and my camera's not on, so I thought for that. Here we go. So on the point of teams, just quickly, I get it doesn't always work very well for people not being in person, but for me as a member of public, it works absolutely perfectly, because I didn't really want to take time out tonight to come to a meeting room or whatever. And I can also sit in the house and maybe do a few other things while I'm listening, which is fantastic. And it's all been very interesting, to be honest. So for me, it works well. I get it. It doesn't always work for everybody. That's fine. Regarding getting more members of the public to come along to this, I didn't really see much information about this. I happened to glance a flyer tied to a lamppost up in North Whiteley as on my bike. So I remembered, and then I went back and took a photo of it. So I'm not on social media because for various reasons I don't want to be. So that's a problem, people knowing it's going on. And also, I hate to say it, I've been here 16 years and the community spirit in Whiteley for me is low. My neighbours, etc. Jonathan, you are a neighbour, I know that. But people moved away. I've done quite a lot of stuff for the community. I've grew a community spirit. I've been out and I've picked up litter, etc. Don't see much of that going on. So I think it's at a very low ebb, and that is for me that is quite a major problem. And I don't know what you can do about that, really. But they're my points rather than questions. But
lovely, thank you, Spencer. I'll be honest. I mean, I would quite like to see a stand in Whiteley Shopping Centre, maybe just to sort of advertise it. Perhaps any ideas? I mean, I would welcome any ideas from any members of the public as to how this is going to be promoted more. I really would. So yes, definitely. But thank you, Spencer, for your thoughts, and much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ray Alborough, you've got points. Sorry to keep you waiting.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to pick up on a point that Councillor Lumbie made. He mentioned bus shelters. I am meeting my public transport colleagues next Wednesday afternoon, and after that meeting I would happily update Councillor Lumbie where we are with the provision of the bus shelters.
Lovely, thank you.
Thank you, Ray. That will be great. Thank you. And Lisa has promised to do the same as well. So thank you very much.
Okay.
Councillor Bodger.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for the update on the community governance. One aspect is I looked at the minutes of the last meeting and didn't see what the terms of reference were. I'm surprised that the terms of reference weren't shared with the parish councils concerned, and I still haven't got them. That it's a bit late to make any comments on those terms of reference, but I trust that they are appropriate and suitable, and we look forward to participating in the review. But it would have been nice to know back in November exactly how it was to be conducted. But thank you.
Lovely, thank you, Councillor Bodger. Okay, any other questions for Karen?
Chair, just for Councillor Bodger's information, the terms of reference I think was published with the agenda papers for the last meeting in November. So they are on the website, and I'll happily send him a link after the meeting.
Lovely, thank you, Matthew. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Hi, Jonathan. I did have my hand raised. You haven't noticed me.
Oh, Roger, sorry, I didn't see that. Councillor Benter, sorry, please proceed.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Just coming in, we seem to have gone around the house a bit, because I did lose contact for a short time when Councillor Lumbie started, and he was still going when I got back on again. But we were talking about governance, and I am the chair of the licensing committee. We're meeting to hear this situation, and I was involved previously with the West of Waterlooville development when that changed governance. So I am well aware of all the problems that need to be sorted out, and will ensure that that things go smoothly. And obviously with the help of Karen Vincent, who will be holding my hand on this one. Thank you.
Lovely, thank you, Councillor Bento. Okay, I'll just have a little look on the screen because obviously some people are obviously obscured where there's so many attendees tonight. I'm not seeing any more raised hands. So Karen, thank you for your comments this evening. Much appreciated. And if there are no further raised hands, we shall move on to the next item, which is item 5, discussion on infrastructure. Could I please hand over to Hilary at this point to provide us with a brief update regarding the bus service, of which I think we had an addendum sent to us the other day.
Hi, yeah, really, I haven't got a lot to add to Ray and Councillor Lumbie's comment on the bus service. The Hampshire County Council are still talking to the consortium and negotiating on the bus shelter issue, and I know they hope to get the service running as soon as possible. So we have to wait till next week's meeting.
Okay, lovely. Thank you, Hilary. Any questions for Hilary at all? I'm not seeing any raised hands. Okay, lovely. Hilary, thank you very much. Oh, no, Councillor Mike Evans, sorry there.
Thank you, Chair. Just to let you know, I spoke to Councillor Humby about the buses, and I in fact raised it at the last forum meeting. And Councillor Humby has kindly arranged a meeting with Hampshire next Thursday, because we're quite unclear and not happy, as I explained, about some of the bus routes. We believe they should be going to the surgery. We believe that it should be going to the community hospital. And if they can get to Parkgate, then people can use a bus service to connect to get to QA. So I'm quite happy to report back after that meeting and at the next forum and let people know what clarification we have from Hampshire County Council.
Okay, will the ward councillors be invited to that meeting, Councillor Evans?
I am unaware of that. I raised it directly with Councillor Lumbie, and Councillor Lumbie, I don't know if he has invited anybody else.
Okay, I'm sure, speaking for myself and my colleagues, we would like to be included. So if an invitation could be forwarded, I'm sure at least one of us would like to attend. Okay.
Sorry, Chair. I was trying to find my unmute button. I'm happy to extend it to you. It was the town council had requested the conversation. If you would like to join across, it's 1 o'clock on Thursday. Should I just ask that you get an invite, or
if you could forward it to myself, Councillor Bento, and Councillor Ashwell, I'm sure one of us will endeavour to attend. Hopefully.
Yeah, we haven't had an invite yet. We've just been setting the time, but I will ask that you are send the invite as well.
Lovely, thank you, Councillor Lumbie.
I hope to join it, but it's county council then, so if we're allowed out, I will be joining in. So yeah, I will see you then too, if I can.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, so I'm not seeing any more questions for Hilary, so I will move on to
Chair. Sorry, Chair, just before we move on, sorry to interrupt, but if it's acceptable, we've got Mr. Stewart from Hampshire County Council with us tonight, who's happy to give us a brief update on the M27 Junction 9 scheme.
Okay, that'd be excellent. Lovely, thank you. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you very much, members, for the opportunity to come and provide an update once again on the M27 Junction 9 scheme. I sincerely apologise. I appear to have a slight problem with my camera. I'm more than happy to keep it on, but if you would prefer, I can turn it off.
No, please go ahead.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you very much indeed. So the scheme's been progressing very well. We are still programmed for a summer 2022 completion date. That's summer this year. That's what was advertised at the commencement of the scheme and what's displayed on the scheme boards displayed around the site. There's been significant works already completed at M27 Junction 9. The main remaining works include completing the inner ring on the northern side of the roundabout. Also, we have some work to do to replace bridge parapets for the new pedestrian and cycle infrastructure that's being put in place as part of the scheme. And we have some signs that still need to go on the slip roads, where we are waiting for appropriate times with regard to environmental consents for clearance of some additional vegetation to install those signs on the Highways England network. The major activity that's still required at M27 Junction 9, though, and probably one of the most disruptive activities of the scheme, is the resurfacing of the newly constructed works and the entirety of that roundabout and the tops of the slip roads. Now, we were originally intending that we could potentially carry out those works in October and November last year, but there were a lot of clashes with smart motorway works, which would have been very disruptive. We were also aware that that was a key time for the shopping centre in terms of pandemic recovery. And as it doesn't affect our overall programme and our overall completion date, what we've intended to do is complete those works in the spring this year. So there will be surfacing works upcoming at the motorway junction. That will largely be after most of the smart motorway works are completed. But there will be night works and some road closures in place there, and we'll be carrying out significant communications in advance of those works to let residents, businesses, councillors and local parish and town councils and county councils, district councillors know about those works well in advance, what the dates will be and what the diversion routes for those will be as well. So those are the main things still to be undertaken at M27 Junction 9. We decided not to carry out that surfacing during the winter months and wait until the spring, as it didn't affect our overall programme, and it could be potentially, due to weather and cold weather, very disruptive and having to rearrange the works if we tried to carry them out during January or February. So we're trying to minimise risk and disruption wherever we can, and that's why those works will be carried out in the spring. At Parkway South Roundabout, there's been some significant widening already undertaken. There are new alignments that are in place for some of the traffic at Parkway South Roundabout. There's been a huge amount of public utilities diversions at that junction. The majority of those are now complete, and we're moving on much more to the carriageway widening elements, newly constructed sections of carriageway. At the moment, we have a series of weekend closures on the very southern section of Parkway, where it exits the southeastern side of Parkway South Roundabout in Whiteley. We have had some inquiries from the public about why we are carrying out 6 or 7 weekend closures of that short section of Parkway. Those works are required to install some deep drainage, and what has been determined is that rather than trying to close the road for 2 weeks and the disruption that would cause for the business parks, residents, potentially the impact on Whiteley Way and the roundabout, that it's less disruptive to carry that out over a series of weekends, as our programme allows us to do so. So those will be continuing. There are a couple of additional weekend closures in March that are likely to be required on Parkway for those. At the moment, although we've had inquiries about that, we're not aware that it's been causing significant disruption. There is a relatively short diversion route for that section of works through the business park back to Whiteley Way. In terms of coordination, we've been working closely with the Smart Motorways team and their contractors regarding sharing slip road closures. So a lot of the works we've been able to undertake at the motorway junction, we've been sharing closures at times that they have closures agreed, rather than us doubling up and then having further closures for our works. So there's been some real benefits there in terms of coordination for residents and businesses. That might not be immediately apparent in terms of the number of closures, but we believe that we've significantly reduced the number of closures we would have required by sharing works areas with them when they have sections of the motorway closed. The other things we've been undertaking is also liaising with the North Whiteley Consortium to make sure we're removing TM when required for delivery of materials to their sites, so that we don't have any unnecessary disruption or delays to traffic at the motorway junction with regard to those issues. One thing that's sort of really relevant at the moment is that there are some swans which have returned to the pond on the northeastern side of Parkway South Roundabout. Last year, we carried out a lot of work when those swans were nesting with local residents who are very interested in the swans and regarding how we could assist in making sure that the area was safe for them. We are aware that they have recently returned to the site and to that pond, and we're liaising with some of the local residents regarding their potential movements, nesting sites, and our own environmental advisors to make sure that we make provision for them to access the pond from any nesting sites, and that the work area is safe for them and any cygnets. So we're in a relatively good place at the moment. We can certainly provide further updates, and we have to provide further updates to the forum at future meetings. If anyone's got any questions, though, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Lovely. Speaking from myself as a local resident and user of that motorway junction twice a day, the other morning it was 7 o'clock in the morning, and leaving Whiteley, we're almost down to like a lane and a half almost in places as you leave Whiteley, and at the lights at 7 o'clock in the morning, the traffic was queued back quite heavily. When the lights changed to green, they were green for 5 seconds, and 4 cars got through. I think the traffic sequencing may need looking at. It just seemed to back all the traffic up into Whiteley, whereas the rest of the motorway seemed quite free and easy. That was a concern. It seems to be quite a regular thing. The only other thing is, as you approach the Whiteley junction, or as you're coming round the roundabout heading from Portsmouth, there's one lane where it's closed off, where there looks like some services works going on. it is posted so everyone come around Roundabout can see it. It has been like that a while now, and it's becoming a bit of a problem with a lot of road users who are in that first lane, which typically goes off to Whiteley, which is now right at the very end of it. Suddenly it veers out where you've got drainage works or service works in the ground going on. It's causing problems, along with the fact we've only really got one lane going into Whiteley off that motorway junction at the moment. I'm just wondering what the time frame is on A, opening that first lane up again properly, and B, opening up the second lane going into Whiteley, because it is causing a bit of a snarl back. I'm sure other people that use that junction are probably experiencing much the same issues.
Okay, certainly. With regard to delays coming out of Whiteley, Chair, and we are having some of the new traffic signal infrastructure installed at the moment. We do have traffic signal engineers on site frequently. I will certainly take that back to them tomorrow morning, and ask that they are reviewing the traffic signal timing plans we have in place. We'll also ask some of our site team to carry out some observations there to inform our traffic signal engineers in making sure that the timing plans there are working as efficiently as they can. There's going to be a lot of changes in terms of capacity at the junction and in terms of the traffic management at the junction over the next month as we move towards our surfacing, not only with our surfacing, but as the Smart Motorway project comes to a close. Some of the traffic management we have in place at the roundabout is required for the lane closures that are on the slip roads heading into the Smart Motorway works. There are other junctions where we don't have works going, where we have a similar thing with lane closures on roundabouts. We are working at the moment on the central island at that southern end of Whiteley Way, where it joins the motorway junction. We are looking to get those works completed as quickly as possible to tie in with our surfacing commencing from early March. So there are a couple of weeks where there may still be a lane closure heading into Whiteley, but we are looking to remove that as soon as possible. We will remove it as soon as possible, certainly during the daytime hours. With regard to the westbound exit from the motorway, there is some significant works going on at the top of that slip road. And as you have mentioned, there is some public utilities work and also some work for the new signals which are going on there. We again are looking to remove that as soon as possible, and it's certainly in line with the surfacing works that we have planned from early March. So we will be looking to remove that. We're also working with Smart Motorways, as we are aware that they will at some point be removing some of the traffic management that's been in place. That would obviously potentially put more capacity more quickly to that motorway junction roundabout, and we're working with our signal engineers to make sure that we are mitigating that by working on our traffic signal plans and working on any mitigation we can have when the traffic management changes. So yes, I am aware that there is still some traffic management in place. We are certainly looking to remove it as soon as possible, and that is likely to be in line with the surfacing in early March.
Lovely, thank you very much. And one last thing for me, as a resident Whiteley for over 16 years, I'm glad you're taking into consideration about the swans, as they are very much a local feature of Whiteley. Everyone's passionate about them. They're there every year, and we do love them. So thank you much for the care and attention taken towards them. Councillor Woodward, please.
Thank you, Chairman. As a resident of Whiteley for 26 years, I'd echo your point on the swans. And you picked up one of the points which I was concerned about, which was the loss of lanes around Junction 9. But the other one I wanted to raise, if I may, is what come out of the Rookery Avenue, Whiteley Way junction, which is, for all intents and purposes, looking more like a T-junction than a roundabout now. And both getting into Rookery Avenue when you're coming down Whiteley Way from the motorway, and indeed coming out of Rookery Avenue, the visibility to the right is very poor. There are often a large signboard there, which is difficult to actually see around. As I say, coming down and off the motorway, I think people are expecting you to be able to swing off and into Rookery Avenue, which is actually there pretty difficult to do. And that's been the case now, and I have raised it before, but for 3 or 4 weeks, and I just wonder whether there's a possibility of tidying that up a bit, improving visibility, or when do you think that is actually going to be removed, that particular pile of cones?
So yeah, thank you, Councillor Woodward. With regard to the traffic management at Parkway South Roundabout, there will be some changes upcoming shortly where we'll be moving the traffic towards some of the newly constructed outer areas of the roundabout so that we can start working on the central island. I am aware that there were some issues raised by members of the public and yourself regarding some of the traffic management in that location following an incident some time ago. We have been liaising with the police regarding the traffic management there as well as our own contractor. While it was deemed at that time that the traffic management was sufficient, I will certainly take back to the contractor, as there are many changes going on, if we can potentially improve our signage to make it more, to make drivers, specifically those who aren't as familiar with Whiteley, aware that that is a roundabout in that location. There may be some additional signage that we could install to support that and make that clearer. And I'll certainly go back to our contractor tomorrow and our site team and ask if that can be reviewed again, and then provide advice back if there are any positive changes that we can make in that location.
Okay, thank you very much.
Lovely, thank you very much. Any further questions? Any further questions or anything anyone wants to raise? Councillor Bento? No. Okay. Okay. No. Thank you very much for your update, and we shall move on to the next agenda item. Okay. This is the update on the physical development of the MDA. And as in previous meetings, I'm now going to hand over to Jeff Davis of Tetra Tech to take us through an update on the physical development of the MDA. Jeff, over to you.
Hello, good evening. We have a little presentation as before, which I think Matthew is going to put up on the screen. So those of you who attended the last meeting will probably spot that we hasn't been that long since the last meeting, so things haven't progressed tremendously since that. But I'll give you a brief fly through. Yes, next slide, please, Matthew. As Duncan's already touched on this section, move on to the next slide, please. To Bluebell Way. I'll just touch on the points raised earlier by Mr. Allen and Ray Alborough. We've actually issued some instructions this week to go out and fix the remaining manhole covers. So I'll just check to make sure that we've got all three covered. I know we were certainly going out to do one that had been left over, the one that belonged to Hampshire. So so that should happen fairly quickly, and I'll endeavour to get an update on the actual date. But that should be sorted fairly soon. Next slide, please. These are just some stills taken from the most recent drone flight just a couple of weeks ago. So looking down at the Western Access Junction, Bluebell Way, in this particular picture. Next slide, please, Matthew. Brief view of the centre of the site, Bluebell Way, where former homes have recently started work. Next slide, please. Further view over the primary school and down to the south. Brief update on the major works going on in the middle of the site on Whiteley Way and Curbridge Way. Those works are progressing very well and should be finished by the end of May this year, and we hope to have completed all of that loop by the end of this year. It's due to be open to the through traffic by summer next year, which would go some way actually to relieving the traffic that's currently using Bluebell Way. Once the road is open through up Whiteley Way, that is actually meant to be the main route through, so that would tend to reduce some of the traffic that's probably using Bluebell Way currently. Next slide, please, Matthew. This is again drone flights sort of flying from the north of the site up at the Vistry end, Northern Access Junction, and then continuing on down to the south. That's the roundabout just south of the Vistry area where the bus service will turn. I think where it starts. An overview of the centre, the major works in the centre of the site, Whiteley Way and the Bridge 2 area. Duncan referred to this activity last week where the traffic management had to be removed on the motorway to allow these delivery of these major beams for Bridge 2. Those beams are about 45 metres in length each. And this activity went on fairly successfully last week to install them the bridge section of a major piece of infrastructure. There's quite a nice view of one of the beams going in. A brief view looking over the Taylor Wimpey Woodlands Chase site. It's further to the south. It's now got residents living there now. A little overview on the widening works at off-site Whiteley Way, as we call it. The way things are looking, the legal agreements, which have been a major issue holding things back, are now have been engrossed and are being signed by all parties. We hope that that process will be finished by the end of this month, which will allow us to get the tenders out. I'm working on those tenders just now to get them out, with a view to letting the works in the spring and starting work in the summer. Unfortunately, that probably means that just as Hampshire complete the works of the motorway and Parkway, we're going to be starting on the works to the north of that. So there'll be more cones, I'm afraid, with a view to getting that road finished and opened before Christmas 2023. Quick overview on the housing delivery. 1,765 houses have planning permission. It hasn't changed from the last form, I don't think. We've started 948 houses, finished 483, and have recorded 470 occupations now. Very brief overview just on landscaping. We've let the first contracts to start work and deliveries going forward on there. Next slide, please, Matthew. Now, since the last meeting, I took away some questions which have been raised again this evening in sort of slightly different formats. So I haven't quite answered the questions that came up this evening with this presentation, but I sat down with all the planning, all the sites that have planning permission, and just went through them all to get a sort of a view of just how much we're delivering and by way of wildlife mitigating features, such as black boxes, sparrow terraces. Swift bricks were raised as a particular item at the last meeting. Hedgehog access gaps, etc., etc. So that's just a little survey. I can see there's something that doesn't quite add up on my plan there. That 2,214 is not. That's not right. That should be 1,765. I may correct that and send it over. Something's not added up correctly there, but you can sort of get a view for what's going in. 232 Swift bricks as an example. Just on the left there, that there's the grey image in the middle is one of the types of Swift brick that's being installed. But the next time I will try and add to an update as to how much of this is actually in. This is basically what's in the planning permissions. Next slide, please. So just to answer that point, one of my colleagues from Taylor Wimpey went out and took some pictures of some of the features going into. This is down at Woodlands Chase, down at the south of the site. On the left is a back box, in the middle one of the hedgehog access gates, and just on the feature on the right is another type of Swift brick. You can see just below that solar panel that's on the roof there. Slide, please. And a further question that was raised last time was related to the number of roofs that have photovoltaics on. So again, I sat down with all the planning permissions and sort of did a little bit of my own little survey on this. So broadly, how the developments proceed is that we have to comply with the planning that's been mentioned earlier in the meeting, the planning permission that we received at the time. So that was broadly trying to achieve a 19% reduction in CO2 emissions as a minimum. But the approach that's taken is basically development by development, where the developers and designers sit down and basically use what's known as a fabric first approach. They're trying to make sure the houses are, you know, the insulation is at high standards, etc., to try and achieve the targets. And photovoltaics are added on after that to sort of to plug any gaps, to top up anything as we go. So that's why you don't find that all the roofs are covered. We're basically adding in renewable technologies where it's needed. I also identified that one of the developers, Foreman Homes, has identified they're going to be using air source heat pumps on some of their houses. I don't have the figures for that yet because they're not actually published. Some of this information comes out later to satisfy planning conditions, etc. And generally speaking, where PV is being used, it is sort of put together onto larger roofs, and the reason for that is because there are costs of maintenance, and it's better to have them in bigger arrays and have, you know, single sort of PV converters and that sort of thing, the sort of things that need to be maintained. Next slide, please, Matthew. I couldn't identify from the Crest documents on their sites exactly where all the PVs were on roofs, so I thought I'd put in a picture of their sites. You can actually see PV panels going onto quite a few roofs there. And just in answer to, I think, one of the couple of points that were raised earlier on, and electric vehicles was raised. Developers are responding to what's happening in the world, and on some of the planning permissions that are going through at the moment through this system. Telewimpy, for instance, are opting to install EV charging points on, I think, most of their houses that are coming forward through the planning system now. And also the government's ruled that you know, the use of gas boilers, for instance, is being phased out from 2025. So the development won't have delivered all of its houses by that stage. So the later stages of development are affected by that. So currently we're working with utility companies on how to deal with that, because we'll be going forward on either using electric boilers or some other heat source. And that's going to have an effect on the demand on the electricity system, which was, of course, designed to suit, you know, a development that's being heated by gas boilers throughout. So that will have an effect on our infrastructure, and we will have to upgrade. I suspect we'll have to have work done at the primary substation, for instance, and other works to account for the additional load on the electricity system, because it's not being provided by the gas system. So that concludes my little update. Hopefully I'll take any questions, of course.
Okay, Councillor Woodward, it's you first.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. Just a couple of questions. One relates to Whiteley Way. Did I miss something? I thought that was to be completed at the end of this year, and that seems to have slipped a year, or maybe I'm wrong. Perhaps that could be explained. And if I ask my other question at the same time, although I think it's going to be touched upon maybe later anyway, but the Whiteley Secondary School, I know, relies upon the trigger of 1,100 occupations and before things get going there, and then a 2-year build time. I just wondered, noting that there are 948 starts on site, whether there was any prediction possible of when there might be 1,100 occupations, and then we know the secondary school is a couple of years away.
Well, I think I'm anticipating that we would get to the 1,100. We won't be far away by the end of this year. I think on the forecasts I've been given, although we are running a little behind those forecasts, I think it was showing 1,098 by the end of this year. So we will hit 1,100, you know, within about a year's time. Whiteley Way, we have had delays. It's been quite a struggle to get the legal agreements in place, and nothing can happen without those legal agreements in place. And also I think I described previously the last meeting, the problem we've had with the weak culverts between roundabout 2, roundabout 3. So that's going to add to our program as well. So taking those two things together, provided that we get the agreement signed up this month, we've got at least 3-month lead in to agree traffic management, etc., before we can start work. So not anticipating being able to start work until the summertime, probably late July before we get there. And with the amount of work that has to be done down there, and it's not that straightforward, as you know, trying to keep, traffic flowing and the retail centre alive. It's just going to take a while. We have the embargoes to deal with, so I'm predicting it will be finished in sort of autumn of next year.
Okay, so are you as confident that Whiteley Way will open next year as you were that it would open this year?
When I have the legal agreements in place, I'll be a lot more confident, because that's what the problem has been for most of the time. So every time I sit down and think we're going to get a legal agreement fairly soon, it just keeps dragging. There's been a lot of issues to resolve, but at least the good news is those agreements are now being signed and should be in place by the end of the month, which triggers everything else to happen.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Woodward. Councillor Lumbie, please.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the presentation, Jeff. Very good and calm and measured as ever. Very impressive. One overall point, which actually mildly out of order, but I wanted to, as in out of the correct order of the meeting, not out of order, full stop. I wanted to thank Hilary for all her big work that she's been doing, and she's been very helpful to me in answering stuff. So I wanted just to mention that. I think one of the concerns, and we've sort of heard the different points of it tonight, is the fact that we have so much going down Bluebell at the moment. We heard from Mr. Allen about the speeding. We've heard about other issues down there and the fact that we don't know when we're going to be opening up Whiteley Way and taking that pressure off. We've got the primary school there up and running, and there is a lot of concern about the whole traffic in that area, the cars, where the cars park, the kids, everything else, the lorries going up and forth or back and forth. We heard about some of the speed that they go. Are the plans, the related point, the signage overall seems to be, while going out, does seem to be quite, haphazard is the appearance. I'm sure there's a master plan and devised by someone infinitely cleverer than me. My concern is at the moment we have a potential issue that right in the middle of Bluebell, we have Cornerstone, we have all the kids, we have all these cars and lorries and everything else. We don't have effective signage there. Are the plans to do more there to calm things down and control things? Or is it just a case that we all have to hope and pray and get Whiteley open as fast as possible?
Well, I think I'll take
You may
away.
think that's an unfair question, nothing to do with you as well, which I would accept, by the way. So don't.
We can't accept an unsafe situation, so that's the first thing to say. So I certainly will have to take away the points about the signs. We have a lot of temporary signage that we put in for speed, and I think it does tend to get knocked over quite a lot, and it's
and
continuous.
some of it gets thrown over the fence. There seems to be some sort of
yeah, but that happens on lots of developments, I'm afraid.
Really?
But we're forever having to pick it up and set it straight again. I'll pick up on the lorries. So that's certainly under our control. That they should not be speeding lorries. Certainly down there. So we know we'll have to just pick up on that and reel it in if there's a perceived problem.
I think ultra slow, because speed is a perception, as you know. It's actually very hard to judge what speeds are we going.
It is, and one of the issues, and we talked about speed on Bluebell Way. So one of the issues is, as you come down the hill, you've got quite a long view in front of you, a relatively straight road going over the bridge before you get to any development. And that is a temporary situation, of course, because, you know, there's further developments going to be built along the side of the road there that's not yet started. And when they do appear, that will tend to constrain things in terms of speed. But that's in the future. What the concern is now. So rest assured, we will take it away and make sure we can do whatever we can to slow down the traffic.
It might be just some more signage is needed. Someone referred in an email to me to vertical traffic calming. I didn't know what that was, but it probably meant signs.
It's bumps or sleeping policemen, as they used to be called.
Yes.
The horizontal is, you know, deflections. So that's the point that Ray raised earlier. So we undertook the speed survey on the hill, and basically it's a road safety audit, part of a road safety audit. And so we employ, you know, professionals in that field to go out and do it for us, undertake a speed survey and offer up the results to the highway authority, and then basically wait for the verdict. So if the verdict is that we need to put in, you know, further features to, you know, to deflect things and slow things down, then we have to do what we're told basically by the highway authority in that respect. So
that's good. Can I ask a sort of not directly related point, which is about rubbish and litter? I appreciate these are building sites. Inevitably, we're going to get stuff lying around, and some of the stuff we see on the verge is not coming from contractors. It's coming from antisocial yobbos chucking their rubbish out of their car windows. But there does seem to be a fair amount. Are there particular measures to deal with that? Is this particularly unusual for this sort of development? Are we better or worse? Can we do more to clear away?
Sadly, it's not that unusual, I suppose. It's on private. It's all currently private land. The road is effectively a private road at the moment. So what we will have to do is arrange a litter pick on a regular basis, because ultimately it will detract from trying to sell houses. So it directly affects our client as well. So if this is becoming an eyesore, sadly I haven't been to site for a while. I don't live close. I live a lot further away from site than most people on this call. So I haven't been down there for a while for one reason, for all the reasons we know about in the last couple of years. So I'll talk to my colleague tomorrow and make sure
Thank
that.
you. Yeah, that would be kind of it. Just go on the radar and something to look out for. Thank you very much.
Lovely. Thank you, Councillor Lumby. Jeff, very quickly, I had an email from Mrs. Karen Mason, who asked about the ownership of balancing ponds and how they were maintained. Although she didn't say a great deal, I got the feeling there was an issue at hand, and how she got in touch with people to deal with any issues arising from them.
I think if she was to raise it with us or send me an email, or it's I don't know if it's a specific one. We've got quite a few of them, so
yeah, I'll get in touch with her and ask her to contact you, because she did ask, and I said I would ask the question. So this is me asking the question. So if you don't mind, I'll release your email address, and I'm sure she'll get in touch.
Yeah, sure.
Lovely, thanks,
I mean, in the broadest of terms, we build the ponds. We need to landscape and finish off all the landscaping, open space around them, and then the section of 106 requires them to be handed over to a management body to undertake the long-term maintenance in perpetuity. So that's broadly how it works. But in the short term, it's us, it's the developer.
Chair, can I ask a quick supplemental on that?
Of course, please proceed.
Thank you very much. So apologies. Jeff, I know that there were some, the ROSPA were doing some inspections on the ponds to see whether they were all safe and whether anything further was required. You don't happen to know whether they've done that now and the reports have come in and what they might say? Sorry, wholly unfair question.
It is slightly because I think ROSPA were out in the north of the site, and I have less information about the north. But I thought they were looking at the play areas, but they may be looking at the ponds.
I thought they were looking at the ponds because there was a concern about because they got some quite steep banks, particularly as you say at the northern end.
Yeah, I haven't seen the report. I did get an update from Vistry in the north, which refers to ROSPA, but David Postle of Vistry didn't mention ponds. Oh no, so he did. Sorry, carried out player by parcel 4 and the basins. So yes, there has been something. I haven't seen it. I'll need to inquire about it. It doesn't tell me any. It doesn't give me any results. I think they picked up some issues. It doesn't say exactly what they are.
Thank you. Sorry, that was very unfair. Sprung, but if you could let me know at some point, that would be very useful. Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Sorry to interrupt.
No problem. Thank you very much, Councillor Lumbie. Thank you, Jeff. We have a question from member of the public, Spencer Allen. Mr. Allen, your question, please.
I think Councillor Lumbie beat me to it a little bit, but I reiterate what he said, is that the rubbish down there is appalling, and there's nowhere to buy a house down there. If I went down that road, there's no chance, because it is Yobbo's rubbish, but a lot of it is builders' detritus. I've seen things dumped out of builders' vans because, you know, it's white van man. I can't tell them all the same brush. I happen to have a van myself, so, but yeah, I think for me, it's the site maintenance on those roads is poor. Those signs are they're still, I call them sandwich board signs, whatever they are, with sandbags. But we get Yobbos down there at night, they just bung them in the bushes. They're not permanent enough. And as I said before, those signs are they're not very concise. It's long-winded. It says something like, this is a private road and you cannot go more than 20 miles an hour, something like that, or it's something worse to that effect. It's such a long-winded sign that you don't even read it. I guess people in cars just haven't got time to read it. So for me, it'd be, you know, some more concise signs on speed. The lorries, yes, definitely speed up that hill to get up it. I suppose they're under time constraints, so it's not just them, to be honest. But for me, if it was me, I'd say coming up, like, employ a person to pick up litter and do general site maintenance, you know, once a week or something. I don't know. It's all money, and it's not my money. So, but that's the way I see it. If someone could go around, pick up litter around the roads, do the maintenance, make sure the signs are up, make sure there's no graffiti, because the gas regulator valve, whatever it's called, the green box down the road, that got graffitied by a well-known tagger that I've seen around Southampton as well. But they have gone and cleaned it off, which is fantastic, because graffiti creates more graffiti. So it's all those sort of site maintenance issues, which I see as being a key issue.
Lovely, thank you, Spencer.
A good point. I shall take it away.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Spencer, and thank you, Jeff. Any more questions for Jeff at all before we move on to the next agenda item? Okay, I'm not seeing any raised hands. Okay, and finally, I shall hand over to Hilary Oliver, who will take us through the highlights of her report, which was published with the agenda and available on page 11. Hilary.
Oh, thank you. In all honesty, my report, like Jeff says, is very brief for this forum. Hasn't been long since the last forum, and so therefore the facilities haven't advanced as much, other than we obviously did collect the affordable housing money that was due. So we have now collected nearly 2.9 million in affordable housing from the Section 106, which is great news. And in terms of the planning applications, yeah, we're currently considering 742 houses over the schemes. So in total, we've either approved or we're considering 2,507 houses out of the 3,500. So just goes to show that this site is progressing really, really quickly. Not got anything else to say about the report, but happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you, Hilary. Any questions at all for Hilary at all? No, it's all looking very quiet. So thank you for that, Hilary. And moving on to the last item, is there anything members of the forum wish to raise or add for the next meeting, please? And I do look forward to hearing emails from everyone about the presence of in-person meetings. I know Councillor Woodward has emailed me 3 times already on it this evening. Any other questions or items that members would like raised, please? Councillor Woodward, let's start with you. You're muted, Councillor Woodward.
It's probably one for Hilary, which I might have got in very slightly late with, but I note the proposal for a building being taken over to be opened as a community centre, which seems very wise. That's exactly what we did on the existing Whiteley and Fareham, and got a house, actually a new house, open as a community centre. I just wondered whether there are any plans as to when that does come on stream, which looks like April, which I'm sure will be very welcome for the new part of Whiteley, but who would actually be running that facility? You know, are you going to be looking to the Whiteley Community Association, or are the developers doing it, or how's that going to work?
We're currently in conversation with our community team here to sign a management agreement with Vistry to run that, but the final details haven't been agreed as yet as to who's going to run it.
Okay, well, can I suggest then, Chairman, and maybe that is an item for the next meeting, that it would be useful to have some oversight of that. I'm sure people from all parts of Whiteley tend to use all of Whiteley's community facilities wherever they're based. And as I say, to bear in mind the Community Association, which of course does cover all of Whiteley.
Agreed, yes, I think that'd be a worthy item. So yes, happy for that to be included. Councillor Lumbie, please.
Thank you, Chair. It occurs to me that if we were to hold the next meeting at Cornerstone School, not only would that be very close to residents who would come along and share their experiences, it would also be a chance to see members see what is a fantastic facility, and I think it would be great to encourage people to see that. There is a very large meeting room. Councillor Bentoad was with me when we had the opening, so he will confirm it's a good size, hopefully. And it would be really good to potentially go there as a venue and publicise locally as well the holding of the meeting. It would be interesting to also hear from residents at that meeting what experiences they've had in sorting out issues with the houses, whether snagging has been sorted, public issues, you know, just hear directly about things like lights that haven't yet been put on, where there are clearly gaps with dog poo bins, signage, that sort of stuff, which is all very low level and very unexciting and incredibly important, as I'm sure you agree. So that's just a thought to put in, and also an agenda item to perhaps consider if we can get the some new residents to come along. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. But I mean, I know personally I would like to see an update again on the next meeting about the M27 and how things are progressing, considering what's going on at the moment. So I'd like to put that forward myself. Does anyone else have anything else they would like to raise at all? Okay, I'm not seeing any raised hands.
Sorry, we did discuss whether you wanted to have an update from Hampshire Education at the next meeting.
Yes, I think that would be a good idea. Definitely, let's include
particularly
that one as well.
from in Cornerstone School.
I mean, I was in conversation with the headmaster, and he said as long as the date suited, he would be happy to come and give his experience of starting Cornerstone.
Excellent. Okay, fantastic. Okay, Councillor Therese Evans, please.
Chairman, would it be useful to for members of the forum to have an overall timetable of houses, traffic, roads being opened or closed or whatever? Because we've been given lots of dates tonight. So could somebody put it into one piece of paper? A timetable perhaps for this year?
Yeah, I think that would be helpful. Definitely, I think it was, as with construction, it's always a moving target. But I think if we've got something for the next, at least for the next few months, that would definitely be worthwhile, and I would like to propose that as well, definitely. Councillor Bodger.
Right, I agree with that point, and perhaps we could have a map with dates on it. My guess is that the next agenda will include a report on progress of the community governance review, but I'd like to be sure that it will be there.
Okay, I know.
Councillor Fern, if I can assist, I'm more than happy to come along in person or either with a paper to your next forum meeting to update your members on the progress of the community governance review.
Lovely, thank you, Karen. That would be fantastic. We'd welcome that.
You're welcome.
Much. Excellent. Okay. Anything else any members would like to raise as a next item, please? Okay, I'm not seeing any raised hands. Okay, well, I'd like to thank everyone for their contributions tonight, particularly the officers and fellow members and members of the public. It's nice to see such a spirited meeting again, and thank you very much for that. And the meeting is now closed. Thank you very much for your attendance, and have a nice evening.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you,
Good
Chair.
night.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chairman.
Good night.